All right. Okay. Welcome to a Mutant Manifesto, Frozen Rhizome. This is historic. The first 3 episodes of Frozen Rhizome have been just me checking in about how I'm feeling under the ice occupation in Minneapolis, but I wanted to start incorporating other voices from the scene as well. So today I have Rosie B on. Rosie B is a South Minneapolis resident, teacher, and parent, and a Minnesota Lynx fan. Rosie,
Yeah.
welcome to a Mutant Manifesto. How's it going?
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. As far as how's it going, it's a weird vibe out here in Minneapolis. But today, it's a beautiful snowy day, and that feels good. And having lots of cozy time with my family this weekend, to kind of reset a little bit has felt good. Um, yeah. Right now, I'm doing okay.
That's great. Yeah, so we wanted to talk about like Rosie's been very involved in setting up mutual aid, and
Hmm.
so we're going to be talking about mutual aid and what it means and how it's feeling on the ground. But before we do that, I wanted to take a minute to just like get more into like how you're feeling specifically about
Yeah.
ice. It's kind of one of those things where everyone is constantly talking about it in Minneapolis, and I think people have reported feeling a little bit fatigued and burnt out as we just continue to persist. Um, but yeah, I wanted to see like how you're feeling, just like somatically, or like if there's anything that you're thinking about that's been coming up more recently about it.
Yeah, I think like kind of many people in the Twin Cities having a wide range of feelings throughout the day from, pure rage to exhaustion, to like intense love for our community and our community members. I do think sort of that like idea of ice occupation just keeps bringing me back to the idea that like thousands of activists around the world talked about, with Palestine, right? Like if our government's willing to commit a genocide while we watch it on our phones, like they're going to come home and do the same thing here. And obviously, we're not to that level of genocide and destruction in Minnesota, but we are seeing some similar patterns of people being targeted, children being affected, families being torn apart. So kind of that idea that like anything that your country will do abroad, they're also going to be willing to do it too at home. And I just keep thinking about that, and that really fuels my energy, um, to keep fighting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the boomerang theory of empire, whatever, and then
Hmm.
also the common knowledge of the sharing of technology between Israel and America,
Hmm.
and the experimentation with different forms of surveillance technology in Gaza that now is being used in Minneapolis.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about this being a potentially revolutionary moment. Like, is this the Civil War? Are we in like the next Civil War or whatever? But I think that one of the most radical potentials of the moment is kind of like the mutual aid and the like the support, the community support networks that are building, and like all the pro bono stuff that's happening. Um,
Hmm.
and I feel like that is part of the reason why I could see the level of suppression by the state like only continuing. So yeah, I mean that's like an avenue of resistance that I think is kind of more invisible to people outside of Minneapolis, but it's very intrinsic to the experience on the ground. Um,
Yes. Yeah. I think that we can act as socialists before socialism comes to America,
mhm,
or socialism here. It's just in the streets and in the people, not in the government.
absolutely. Okay, so you mentioned socialism. Like, I guess my question is like, so give us a little bit of like background on when did you get into leftist politics or activism, and when has mutual aid become like a focus within that context for you?
Yeah. I was actually talking about this last night with my sister a little bit. She's also very much, on the ground, activist. and she and I were talking about we had a grandma who was a socialist. She was from Norway, Sweden, and she lived with us when I was growing up, and she would love to go off about the evils of capitalism and the importance of socialism. And so I think a lot of people are taught at a young age that like socialism's bad or that capitalism's the only way, but I was lucky enough to have it as like a part of my very young upbringing, that it was normalized, like, yeah, we should be sharing our stuff, like that's real basic. And then I'd say it kind of has slowly sort of heated up throughout my life with in college I took a class about Israeli occupation of Palestine, and I took a class on that, and remember that was a real turning point for me as growing up in the United States, always being taught that like Israel has the right, has the right to exist over Palestine, and taking that class and being like, oh, that's Palestine is under occupation, and that was a real eye opener for me. And then I was like, oh, if they're lying about that, what else are they lying about? And so I feel like that was another turning point, just of awareness about our government politics abroad and at home.
That makes sense. Like having the revelation and the way that you see that conflict that you were propagandized to believe a certain way opened the crack of doubt that you needed to like further explore different popular narratives and how they go counter to like the like popular flourishing. But so then like has when did you start getting involved with mutual aid?
Yeah. Yep. I think that's been kind of my biggest focus since the George Floyd uprising. As lots of you know, that was really a big part of that was like COVID was still being acknowledged as a thing and still affecting a lot of community members. And so people weren't working as much, or people were losing their jobs or getting sick. And so the need around the uprising became very apparent that people just needed cash, right? Like they needed to pay their bills. There wasn't options for support from a lot of social services or government. Things weren't showing up and supporting people. I think it kind of started to crack the narrative around like, if you get sick or something happens to you in the United States, like the government will take care of you. Like, oh, you can just get on disability, which is actually like an incredibly hard process and can take a number of years. And so just that idea that like there were things in place to take care of people, I think significantly more people started to realize like that's not true. If you are not from a resourced family, your odds of getting help when you need it are pretty low in the U.S. And so having a community structure in place like mutual aid, so that people don't have to rely on the 2-year waiting process to get on disability, or have to wait for their uncle to pass away so they can get an inheritance, but that there is already a system in place to support community members, essentially with capital, right? Under capitalism, the only thing that, or the main thing we need to survive is capital, because we have to pay for everything. And so, yeah, I just got really into mutual aid at that point. I might, and I also became disabled at that point too. So was diagnosed with long COVID before it became a recognized disability, and had a number of like pretty huge health events happen. And so I wasn't able to work for a while, and had to kind of create my own mutual aid network just within my family and friends. But then it ended up kind of extending around the world. I was in like a long COVID mutual aid group that had people from all over the world, and we would chat and share resources. And those that were more resourced would share money, and it just became kind of like a regular part of my life. That mutual aid was just something that I do now.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I in this podcast, some of the themes that we've been like threading through the episodes are surrounding like adjacency or being directly affected by just unwellness, illness, misfortune, whatever you want to call it, and how that is sometimes essential to like the ability to feel empathy in a system that negates the understanding of interconnected suffering.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, being personally affected by a global illness, and then like the flip side of that being that you then become connected and mobilized with a global community is kind of like very mutant manifesto coded.
Yes.
That's interesting how those two things go in tandem. And then I guess also like that's one of the things people are talking about in Minneapolis too is like obviously all sorts of horrible things happen all the time. Deportation has been happening this whole time through the Biden administration, through the first Trump,
Mm-hmm.
through Obama. And so
Mm-hmm.
like but it's in times of like mass visibility or like when people who are not normally affected are affected directly, when
Mm-hmm.
we are enabled to feel empathy and to then have an opportunity for mobilization. Um, yeah, I mean, um, yeah, and I guess that also kind of already hints a little bit at the next kind of question that I have, which is like when we say mutual aid, how does that differ from the idea of just like charity? How does that differ from just like giving out of the goodness of your heart?
Right. Yeah. I think that there are some key differences, right? I think when we think of charity, a lot of times that is sort of donating to like an organization, or a nonprofit, or um, another, like just another entity, right? Not a direct person. Like, yes, maybe someone will be, supported by that organization, but also maybe not. A lot of organizations that are charity organizations spend a lot of money on overhead salaries. Don't are not are often not directly meeting the needs of the people that they say that they are, or there's like a huge, long waiting process, or there's a lot of red tape. Especially right now, a lot of the people that are most vulnerable are new to country, might have English as a second language, might not have access to um, just sort of understanding all the bureaucracy that comes with trying to get support here. And so a lot of times when people donate to charities, it doesn't actually directly affect someone, or if it does, it's like it takes a month or two or a year or two before it actually helps them. And so when we think about things like, February, oh, it's February 1st today. That means like everyone's rent is due today or in the next, 5, 6 days. And while we don't have an eviction moratorium, which is something that we desperately need, but while we don't have that yet, that means people are expected to, pay $1,000 to $2,000 or more right now. And so the immediacy, I think mutual aid is affecting the best way to affect people's and support people's immediate needs. Like, you have to have money to pay your bills. You have to be able to eat. Um, I think that it's been interesting, just listening to kind of the different dialogues around mutual aid, and people being like, "Oh, well, I gave them money for groceries last week," and I'm like, "Yeah, you need groceries every week. That's not like a one and done situation.
Mm,
Like, sure, you don't need like rent money every week, but you definitely need money to exist."
mm,
And so I think that mutual aid is also no questions asked support, right? When you give to charity, a lot of times it's for something very specific, like, oh, I'm going to help you with this one thing, or we're going to help you with, rent or groceries, but you have to spend it on that. There's
hmm
always some sort of stipulation. Or you need receipts. Like, what'd you use that money for? Mutual aid is like, you give that money to that person and it's no one's business what they do with it. Ideally, like, yes, they would have enough so they could cover their like monthly expenses, but um, it's not actually our business what people do with the mutual aid money that you share with them. It's just this idea that if you are resourced, if you have something that someone else needs to survive, that like you're going to share that with them. It's like real like kindergarten, kind of like, you have more than others, you share some of that. And yeah, it's a real basic concept, but definitely a radical act.
hmm Yeah, I mean, so yeah, you cited like this idea of it being more direct, more, in a way, uh, grassroots in that way. because
Hmm.
it's not going through interloping, like companies or nonprofits necessarily. And I guess there's also maybe like something to note also is like the reciprocal notion of mutual aid.
Hmm.
When you started the mutual aid network, you were personally affected and had personal needs, and then so like you created these networks in part to help yourself as well, correct?
Hmm. Yeah.
And then also the idea that when we like if we can keep neighbors who are directly affected housed right now, then those
Hmm.
neighbors are compatriots or comrades who can then be use their safety to further the collective aims
Hmm.
of collective liberation. Whereas if they are struggling with the basic necessities, then they cannot take part in revolutionary acts or
Hmm.
whatever that means for them.
Yeah, I think that that's really important to think about as far as like we're kind of living in the time of polycrisis, right? Like there's climate crisis, there's health crisis, there's violence crisis, there's we live in there's technology, water, all polycrisis. And so the idea that like we're all going to have something that affects us at some point, right? Like it's, you might get, like a rough case of COVID. You might experience some natural disaster and you need support. You might be so, like, basically, at
Mm.
some point, you're going to need help from your community,
Mm-hmm.
right? All of us, regardless of some people are more heavily resourced, and so they might be able to bounce back quicker or
Mm-hmm.
get to safety, or kind of avoid some of the poly crisis. But most of us are going to have experiences where we're going to need community support throughout our lives, and so having those networks already built in and normalized and supported, I think, is kind of like how we move forward as a species.
Totally. Yeah, I mean it's a matter of survival. Yeah. Yeah. I mean I guess I'm kind of curious about um this I'm curious like what the structures of mutual aid networks look like as far as you can tell. I know that you
Hmm.
personally like collect funds and then redistribute them.
Hmm.
So I'm kind of curious about like how that looks on a grounded level. Like what do you personally do a lot of that like per, do you find different needs and meet them through
Hmm.
that? Is it like how do you find people to donate the money or to redistribute the money to, or like
Hmm.
what are some nitty gritties of that if you don't mind getting into it?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that it's a little different right now, obviously, a little more focused. Right now, I'm really using my energy and my connections with community to support the students and families at a school I work at. And so that has been kind of my focus area, right? That like I want all my students to remain housed and fed throughout this occupation. And I think kind of prior to that, I was involved in like, yeah, lots of mutual. Lots of mutual aid. I have kind of a wide range of, or what is the right word? I have a network across the country. Not everywhere, but in many different places. So when like Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina, I used to live in North Carolina and have a lot of connections there still. So supporting mutual aid that way, I think, and then have family and friends in New Orleans, and so tapping into mutual aid networks down there. And I think that a lot of it is like just knowing kind of on the ground activists in different places and tapping into them. I think a good rule of thumb is to find any sort of activist or like collective, run by Indigenous, Black and Brown folks, queer folks, kind of the people who are trans folks, just anyone who's kind of experiencing oppression and kind of are at the center of whatever situation is happening and really taking their lead, right? So um, connecting with people locally that way, but then also kind of across the country, finding those different entry points where you can start supporting and connecting with people. And yeah, I guess that was kind of a roundabout answer, but
Um, no, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it feels like the internet seems like it's a pretty big part of
yeah.
that, but also just like your personal, like, filial and like affective networks and relationships. Just that,
Hmm.
like, just tapping into those seems like the strategy that you take to like, you just have whatever reach you have.
I also think like starting, not starting, but like supporting any kind of mutual aid that I can, even if it's just like $5.
Hmm.
I think that that's another thing that I think is important for people to know, is that like you don't have to be like, giving
Mm.
out thousands of dollars every
Hmm.
week. Like a lot of times I think about it kind of based on like 1 to 5% of your salary, right? So like if you're someone that makes kind of a lower salary, you're going to donate, you know, 5, 10, $20 a month. If you make a little more, you might donate 100, or not donate, sorry, share 100. And just kind of thinking of through that way. Like it doesn't need to be this like, you don't have to use your whole paycheck.
Hmm.
But it could just enough where like, it might be like, oh, I'm not gonna go out for dinner this month. I'm gonna use that money to
Hmm.
support my neighbors. Just kind of thinking of it that way. And so almost like, not anytime, but a lot of times when I see a mutual aid call to action, I either share it or send a small amount. But that is a way to kind of keep those connections building, right? So other people see, like, oh, this person shared with me when this happened. So I'm going to share their request on social media. Or this person, supported us during this movement. And I think that the internet has been like really helpful for that piece of it, just
Hmm.
connecting the idea of like kind of intertwined liberation, right? If we're
Hmm.
fighting and supporting people's liberation and freedom, they're gonna want to support us when we're under occupation.
Sure. I like the idea of it being like more modest or moderate like amounts that you're giving depending on what you have, because I guess there's kind of like a humility in that it can be, you don't want to, sometimes it's easy to think that like $5 is not going to change anything, but yeah, it's like something, and that like accrete that like that grows over time. It's like
Hmm.
watering plants or something. Like you can't just like give it too much water at one time, and you can't
Yeah.
just neglect it.
I think too, like small amounts like make it feel more sustainable for people, right? Like a lot of times there's like a crisis and people are like, "Oh, I'm going to donate a bunch of money right now." And then, like a year later the crisis is still happening and everyone's like, "Well, I already donated money." But if,
Hmm.
you're giving $5 a month, that's like a sustained support, but it's not going to like, you're sharing $5 a month with, people on the ground, um, and that can be like really impactful. I think my favorite like mutual aid like messages or things that pop up are like my former students will like send me $5 on Venmo, and I'm just like, I
Wow,
love that so
nice.
much. Like that's I think some of the most meaningful support that I've received
Hmm.
is just seeing, yeah, people that you've impacted that want to keep sharing. It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
you've taught them well. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's something about like the way that in this world, I feel like the way that like spending money is a certain, like it's become fetishized. Like it's something that is
Hmm.
enjoyable in so many different ways. For example, like for me, it's like I don't know, like buying a pack of magic cards, and like
Hmm.
there's something about like I can't, like it would be good to use this in so many other ways, but I'm gonna like burn this money on this pack of cards and open it and see what I got. But I feel like there's a level at which that type of like decadence gets like it overflows your cup a little
Hmm.
bit, and so then using the same amount of money for like a pack of magic cards just to donate, or I mean to pass along to a network that you believe in. It like kind of enables that. I don't know, kind of like does the same thing, scratches the same itch in a different way, kind of.
Yeah, get that little dopamine rush.
Right,
You helped out your
exactly.
neighbor, like
Right.
you built a connection, you made a comrade. Like that's just as fun as. Well, I don't play Magic, so I don't want to say.
Yeah.
But my brother does, and I understand how much people love that game. So
right. I mean, it's better. Yeah, everything is better with when kind of spread out, I guess. So yeah, I mean, I guess I also wanted to touch on. You mentioned basically like the idea of focusing on like Black, like BIPOC run, or like mutual aid networks that are run by or are run by like marginalized people. I wanted to mention. I just wanted to like kind of emphasize that in terms of like it not just being like just identity politics, but this idea that we talked about before about like when you become directly affected by something that kind of enables you to have empathy for other circumstances. And so if you think about the intersectionality of the poly crises that you were talking about, it's like people who have been affected directly on multiple different angles of it that kind of have the largest scope in a certain way to like feel connected to the struggles of those around them and stuff. So that's just kind of another angle in on that. If anybody is listening, maybe who was like, okay, like liberal identity politics. It's like there are real like embodied and strategic reasons why you may have emphasized that. And
yes, and I think that like mutual aid is like if say the people who are most affected want cash and you're giving them cans of beans and rice, like that's not mutual aid. That's gonna be like charity, And so the people that like whoever's being kind of the most affected, like what is it that they are asking for, I think is really important. I have noticed that I mean I'm a white person, that I think probably myself included, but that white people like to help without kind of asking what people want help with. I'm sure other people do this too. I'm just from a white family. I've seen this dynamic play out a lot. Or kind of offer help and then be annoyed when someone accepts that help. And I think that's why I like mutual aid so much, that it's just like if you have what the person is asking for, you give it to them, and that's it. There's no additional kind of guilt or feelings or processes along with that. And so anytime we can support the people who are most affected by any situation, I think that is really beautiful and important.
Yeah. I like the idea of the aid being, I mean, one of the benefits of it being like money, like, is that it can stay liquid until the person who needs it the most is able to materialize it into something specific. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I think that there's definitely are a lot of contingent offers of care. I mean, we see that's part of the colonial project is like extending care and resources with hidden contracts and hidden debts associated with it. And that's it's a very stultifying and like evil form of care that is kind of has I think it is pretty second nature to a lot of the people from like European ancestry in like Minnesota or who have that kind of inherited form of operating within ethical structures. So yeah, it's definitely relevant, I think. Yeah, okay. I mean, I feel like I kind of feel like we could be getting towards a bit of conclusion, I think I've like okay. I have one more kind of practical question that I'm
Yeah.
kind of just kind of curious about. What do you think about there are like nonprofits? People tend to cite Community Aid Network Minnesota as like a really good mutual aid organization that like focuses on grocery delivery
Hmm.
and stuff like that. Basically, like what do you? But that does exist through a form where you are. It's like food. It's like groceries.
Hmm.
And so I guess my question is, how do you feel about organizations like that? Because that's kind of like the best potential manifestation of it. Maybe like it seems like it's well reviewed and stuff, but
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, versus like the more direct and grassroots kind of like Venmo sharing style.
Yeah. I mean, I think we kind of have a need for both, right? Like, sort of in our structure of mutual aid, like we have a at our school we have a food shelf and have a mutual aid fund, so those things are different, so people can donate, kind of donate money, or not money, sorry, people can share their money with mutual aid through Venmo, or they can bring in groceries, and I think especially right now with being under occupation and some families not feeling comfortable leaving the house and getting stuff delivered is super expensive. Having systems in place where food is easily delivered to families, I think is an important thing that's happening right now. I think that um, we all got to eat and we all got to get that food safely. And so, if there are organizations that are doing that, or I think it's a lot of people too, right? Like just like neighbors are like, "Hey, I'm getting groceries." You text the neighborhood chat who needs stuff.
Hmm.
They go and get it, and I've seen that a ton too. And so,
Yeah, those hyper
um,
local like signal groups have
yeah,
been
yep,
doing that a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, doing that a lot, and I think that that's another way of like we got to do socialism before we're
Hmm.
socialist country, right?
Hmm.
Like we got to make sure that people's basic needs are met, and how we do that is going to take kind of a lot of different approaches, right? So
Hmm.
obviously, like, and like, someone, you might send them cash and then they're like, okay, cool, I got cash, but like I can't leave my house to go get these
Right.
groceries. So I think again, one of the process of like how do people want to be supported, and then be willing to support them in like a variety of different ways. You got to be flexible, right? Like I think about
Hmm.
um I have some families I'm supporting that I bring groceries to every week, and that's what they have requested, and that feels good to them, and then it's like nice for us to be able to like check in and kind of have a buddy, because I think it can be very isolating right now for families who aren't able to leave or who are in hiding. And so that's another like way, another resource or way that you can support is
Hmm.
by, running errands or bringing food. And so I think that we have to do that and mutual aid, right? Like people need both.
Hmm.
We had, there was a family I was working with that like couldn't afford medications that they had to have. And so that was a big push to be like, okay, we just need to like get them this money right now because it's a life or death situation. And so I think with mutual aid, being flexible to what your community needs is really important, and not just being like, here's the one way that we do things and you have to follow these steps and do this. Like, no, you got to be able to kind of move through a lot of different situations, and be comfortable. Or I mean, you don't have to be comfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable, but be willing to navigate kind of whatever the community member needs. Is that's what you're going to do to help them.
Yeah, I'm really enjoying the focus on like flexibility and fluidity and responsiveness and like like the polyphonousness or whatever. Yeah, like the
Yeah.
that's being emphasized here, and I think that is definitely an advantage when it's like, I mean, it must be logistically a lot to hold as someone who's like
Yes.
at the center of like these mutual aid nexuses, but at the same time, the fact that it is more grassroots and mobile and responsive to community is definitely, I see clearly how that's like a strength versus more institutionalized like
Hmm.
charity projects. But yeah, not to say that you're, but yeah, it sounds like you're totally not against like organizations that are doing mutual aid in a certain
No,
way either.
no. I think that, yeah, I think that any way that people are like down for some more supporting community members, like it's
Mm-hmm.
going to take all of us, right? Like how
Mm-hmm.
I facilitate mutual aid might look different and does look different than other people. And um, I think that I have a unique position right now. Like being in the schools means that I'm like very close to a number of
Mm-hmm.
like families that are directly impacted. And so, um, being able to support them directly as a community, as they're members of my community. And I think that other communities look different, and that's okay. Whatever,
Mm-hmm.
whatever works best.
Yeah.
Or not even whatever works best. Whatever works.
Yeah.
We're
Whatever
not,
works.
we're not. Things aren't working best
Right.
yet,
It's not
but
about optimization at this point. Yeah.
yeah.
So I wanted, I guess, like to kind of like close out, like, um, I guess I'm curious, like when you're going out and doing these things, or in these connections, like what does it feel like? Because I feel like isolation is a big topic. That's like the first episode I did in Frozen Rhizome, this little mini series, was like
Mm-hmm.
about my feeling of isolation in Minnesota. I think it's easy to feel isolated in Minnesota. I don't feel personally incentivized to not be isolated because I enjoy being by myself. And but like the need for community and stuff has been something that's been met through organizing and meeting neighbors and everything. I guess I'm curious if there's a feeling of like what it feels like. If, is it, are there ever moments of like tension or discomfort? Or is it that kind of like glowy, like is it like a really positive feeling? Like how does it feel to be overseeing all these different kind of like socialist style transactions or whatever you
Yeah.
want, you know?
Um, yeah, I think a wide a wide range of feelings, right? I think there's definitely been some things that I feel uncomfortable about. I think more sort of like pushback from people that I thought would be more supportive, or people who are like um I think there's a lot of fear right now, right? And so people are scared, and I think when people are scared a lot of times they um look out for themselves, right? Like they want to be safe, they want to do things where they're not going to get in trouble, they want to self-preservation. That's a thing. It's not a not the worst thing. But I do think that being in community and having these networks make us safer, right? They make us all safer, including people that don't really want to join in yet. That's okay. We're making helping you be safe too. And so I think that that has been more of just like a personal struggle of just kind of wanting people to be a little bit more socialist, a little bit faster.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's okay. I do think that I've seen immense growth from some of the people that I'm doing mutual aid work with, like within a
Mm.
very short amount of time. People that like were sort of like, yeah, I don't know, I've never really done anything like that, or I'm not like super involved, or I don't really pay attention to like, a month into this or 2 months into this now, like full on like hustling for mutual aid every day, making deliveries, showing up for their community. And so I think that just the like how fast kind of some of the like learning is, and I think we see that in
Mm-hmm.
like kind of lots of different like whether it's a revolution or just sort of time periods where all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden like there's this like huge growth of ideas that only a small portion of the um, population had suddenly explodes. And I
Yeah.
think this is one of those points, and I'm really hoping it's one of those points. And so
Mm-hmm.
kind of like being alive right now is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty brutal and
Mm-hmm.
also like real beautiful. I have a kiddo, and so I think a lot about like what will their existence be like what like will capitalism be gone, or
Mm-hmm.
anyways, sorry, that's a whole nother topic.
No, yeah.
So I think that go ahead.
I think that's, I guess, just like the reality of. I mean, I don't know if you are at all into esoteric stuff. I feel like you kind of are a little bit, maybe, from what I
Hmm.
know of you. But I think that there's this. I think that there's definitely like this strange paradox of, crisis creating adaptation,
Hmm.
and the idea that, like, through evil and through hardship and drama, uh, interesting outgrowths of beauty emerge.
Hmm.
And so,
Hmm.
it's like kind of part of the alchemical. I mean, there's an alchemy to the way that the like public sentiment just kind of changes in certain times.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I mean, I don't know, just kind of dropping that in a little bit. Like, it's kind of a surreal moment. People have been mentioning how, like, time feels all dilated and weird.
Yeah.
But it does feel like an opening for opportunities of, like, different kinds of reality to be kind of called in here. So,
Hmm.
just for that, anyone, that's also, just to throw in the esoteric, like, thing just a little bit
Yeah.
at the end here. It seems like being part of mutual aid networks is a way to, like, kind of be aware of these kind of, like, portals, so to speak, into this more engaged, more, like, alive and compelling form of being with neighbors and communities. So I guess my kind of one of the last questions is, like, how can people tap into these mutual aid networks themselves,
Hmm.
and if, or, like, what do you have advice for people for, like, forming mutual aid networks?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of mutual aid networks that already exist. So just tapping into that. I know like internet's a great place, but also just like talking to your neighbors. Um, Usually, I think especially in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and the surrounding areas, it seems like there are at least like rent support mutual aids for like every neighborhood. And so I think tapping in, talking to neighbors, talking to people that you trust. Um, Schools are a great place. I think a lot of schools are doing mutual aid actions within their schools. So I think that there are lots of places to kind of tap in already. If you and so you don't have to start your own, right? Like there's plenty of places. Twin Cities Trans Mutual Aid. So I know that's like led by trans folks in the Twin Cities, and they just share people's mutual aid requests when they come in. There's a
Hmm.
few other networks like that where like you just send it in, they'll share it. Like again, no questions asked. You don't have to like put identifying details, and just see if that comes up or if people are willing to share that way. I do think that building trust is a really great way to start mutual aid. I think that if your neighbors, if your family, if your friends, if your coworkers trust you, they're much more likely to share mutual aid with you and trust that you're going to do
Hmm.
what you say you're going to do with it. And so I think keep showing up because that's kind of the biggest thing, right? Like don't just show up when there's one, a big crisis happens and you show up to help the next day. Like you just got to keep showing up. It's sort of like a life practice, right?
Hmm.
And so I think of that with like kind of anything showing up like for like beautiful things too. If someone has a baby, like they probably need some mutual aid support too, in
Hmm.
that moment
Hmm.
also. And so I think building that trust over time is a great way to sort of get more into mutual aid. But if you just are like, I want to send $5 a month, then like there are local mutual aid organizations like every neighborhood in the Twin Cities for sure. Um, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm also just thinking about like the places that haven't. I mean, has a lot of mutual aid networks and
Yeah,
stuff, but like not everywhere is as connected. That's for sure.
that is true.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
I
the
do.
internet is big for that. But yeah, and I feel like I don't know. Maybe just like showing up is the first step in general. Just even if that just means like getting to know your like the person who works at the liquor store or
Yeah,
like the neighbors in your apartment complex. That's a big one.
yeah. I think being a recognizable face to many people in your community like goes a long way, right? As like someone that, shows up, helps out, um, just in any way that you can, is a regular somewhere. Like that's how you
Mm-hmm.
build trust. And then that's like mutual aid is all based on trust, right?
Hmm.
Like we're sharing, we trust that you're using those resources to, well, I guess however you want to, but to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
stay alive essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I feel like I am. I would be. I'm curious if you have any like mutual aid things to plug right now or anything. But other. But I guess before we get to that, like, are there also like any other things you want to say or think about in these last, in this
I think that
context?
something I just want everyone to remember, or there's, well, I guess two things. One, people existed before capitalism. We will exist after capitalism. We don't need it. It doesn't serve the people. And same with ICE. I was born 20 years before ICE. And I plan to be alive 20 years after it is abolished.
Hmm.
So I think that these things that are feeling really heavy and scary and are really heavy and scary and people's lives are being greatly affected don't need to exist. They don't have to exist. They shouldn't exist. And yeah, we can change that by acting accordingly.
Hmm. Mm-hmm. Like making them obsolete just by.
Yeah, there's no need. There's no need for capitalism.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my what.
I do think that's true. It's hard to. It can be really almost like shocking to be confronted with the fact that that is like a possibility. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then like before you know it, like it's not just. But then if you kind of accept it and like take it seriously, then before you know it, it's like you get like hundreds of thousands of people in the street with you.
Yeah.
So thank you for saying that. Yeah, so okay, like do you have any like mutual aid things specifically that you think would be relevant, or is your ask more just to like go find your own?
I think that if you are like looking to directly tap in right now to the Twin Cities, you are not familiar with Smitten Kitten. They are an amazing, I guess, sex shop. I don't know what they like to be called, but they are organizing a ton of cash, um, mutual aid in the form of cash, and I think that that is a really easy place to kind of connect. It's in Uptown. It's like locally known. If you are outside of the Twin Cities, you can look them up online. Smitten Kitten. They're doing a lot of really good work, just providing cash assistance to folks. And I feel like I need to remember the name, but yeah, Twin Cities Trans Mutual Aid Network. They do a lot of really good work. I hope I'm saying that name right.
I mean, you can always message me and
Yeah,
I'll put it in the description.
yeah. I'll look that up. Those are two organizations, or two, not even organizations, mutual aid networks that are doing a lot of really good work right now in the Twin Cities.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Rosie, thank you so much for joining me and for joining us.
yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks for talking about mutual aid and socialism and all the amazing things that humans can do.
For sure. Yeah. It's interesting. We'll see what happens next.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.